You're not going to hear any political talk from me. So, I'm just going to give you guys, first of all, I really like that we have some young people participating. Hopefully you're going to ask me some really tough questions, right? Right? Y'all didn't ask Squeaky Ford anything, nor did you ask Melissa anything, but hopefully you guys are going to ask me some really tough questions. I see the Benjamin out there, president of the Democrat Club, is it? Is it a club, Benjamin, or is it a group, or what's it called?
Club, yeah.
Club. Beautiful. I'd love to hear from you too. We love dissent. We especially love respectful dissent. You know, personally attacking people is never good, but talking about differences is what this country is all about. So I want to start a little bit with my background. Very briefly, I'm not going to say much. I've never run for anything, not even dog catcher. I graduated from the Wharton Business School, similar to our president and Elon, and I went to work for a big company, ExxonMobil. I was in 5 locations with Exxon, started up many different things with them, really enjoyed my stay there, and then ended up with a partner of mine buying a small division of Exxon and became an entrepreneur. And should I actually tell you guys that? That was like 25, 30 years ago, I don't know. Might make me seem really old. Those kids back there saying, who is this old guy we're listening to, right? But anyway, so we'd buy businesses, usually in the middle, what I call middle market, not less than 10 million of revenue, not greater than 100. And we'd take them to the next level, build them up, grow them, and then sell them to a strategic buyer who can then take them up to yet another level. I did 2 startups in my life. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. And I have some gray hair. Definitely have gray over here. I think the startups did that. 2026, by the way, I'm happy to answer questions on that whenever you guys have it, whenever we ask questions. 2026 is a special year. Let me ask you guys, why do you think it's a special year? Not because Squeaky Ford won, but why do you think it's a special year?
250th anniversary.
250th anniversary. Thank you. That's a really, really special year. So a lot of what we hear today is going to go back to that and go back to what is this dream our founders had, and where do we stand relative to that dream, right? So in honor of this being a Turning Point USA event, I know there's a lot of negative feelings right now post Charlie Kirk about Turning Point. I saw some divisions coming out of that Arizona meeting, which is unfortunate because Charlie was a true patriot. But I will address some of the thoughts because there is an overlap a little bit between what Charlie was talking about, what we talk about, and of course, the Constitution. So Charlie believed in something that sort of is one of our core beliefs. He believed in what our founders believed in. In other words, God's Word is revealed through the Holy Scriptures and actually drives a lot of the founding principles of this country. There's actually a great book on it as well, that how it's actually built into the Constitution. Now, some of you are more familiar with the more famous parts of it, right, which is the Declaration of Independence. We're endowed by our Creator. Many years later, of course, the Pledge of Allegiance, one nation under God. But it's all through the Constitution. Our founders believed in that. Charlie Kirk believed in that. I believe in that. I believe that that's where it starts. Our rights in this country that was founded on a dream start with God, not government. Our founding motto in Doge was, we kneel to God, not government. That's where it all started out. And that's kind of very, very close to where, you know, Charlie was. The question is, how does this manifest itself, which is something we're going to talk about today, this keeping government out of it. It started with a very simple piece of the Constitution called the separation of powers. What does the separation of powers do? Let me ask you, what's your name back there with the Aiken t-shirt? Okay, let me ask you why the separation of powers is actually tied in so much with our rights coming from God, not government, or how it's tied in. Do you have anyone? No? So, you know, I just said our rights come from God, not government, and that's sort of built into the Constitution. And I said it's built into the Constitution with a very important piece of the Constitution, which is the separation of powers. How does the separation of powers allow our rights to primarily come from God? That's a beautiful answer, actually. It basically is that it keeps three branches of government co-equal, and it holds them all in check. One controls the other, they're all fighting with each other, and the citizen is free. The citizen stays out of the way. The citizen is allowed to live their life. This country was built on that. You know, this country was not built, there is no, you go to various places, there's Japanese, there's Indians, there is Lebanese, whatever. America was actually founded by people coming here from all over the world, where somehow the sum of those people was better than the little parts that they came from. How did we become the greatest country? Because we allowed ourselves to push the boundaries of what's allowed. Government didn't tell us, you can't do that. You need a permit for that. We're not going to let you do that. We're going to take your money out of your pocket, so you cannot do that. They didn't do that. The early years, actually, there was no tax. We were just free people who excelled in almost it doesn't matter where it was. It doesn't matter if it was science, space, sports, industry, automotives, didn't matter. And you have to say, well, what is it? Were we some sort of a superior human being? Well, that sort of gets in the way because we came here from all different places, right? How could we suddenly become superior? No. We came into a system that these great founders dreamed of, and they knew that if we set people free to govern themselves, then we have one of the greatest nations in the world. And that's what happened. And then there's a whole generation, probably my generation before me, that started walking away from it, and then now we started running away from that. Right? And when we talk about Doge and Palmetto Revolution and all, it's all about saying, in the 250th anniversary, it's time to rethink what that all was about and why we're getting away from it. Charlie's second thing was free speech. We talked about it earlier. I was talking to Benjamin right before the meeting started. I am 100% opposed to suppressing dissent. I do not believe in it. I do not believe, and I also believe that personally attacking people, calling them names, and all of these kind of things is a form of suppressing dissent. You intimidate them into not wanting to talk. You cancel them where they're afraid to go on there and say what they believe. If you can't say in public what you say around your dinner table, you are suppressing dissent. Period. End of story. A lot of people are afraid to do that. And again, that's another place where we sort of overlap with Charlie's message. There's a third area, and we'll get into in a second, which we talked about a little bit, self-governance and limited government. You know, Alexander, for those of you who study history, I don't know if anyone studies history that much, but Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, they never actually got along, you know? They had some differences in philosophy, federalist versus non-federalist. They had some differences, but they agreed on one thing. They said, can this country self-govern itself and not be subject to being ruled? They always ask themselves, can we possibly create this dream of a country that governs itself and doesn't subject itself to being ruled? So everything they did revolved around that. Everything we do revolves around that. Charlie Kirk talked about that. And the little last piece is, I'm just going to make this up, because I like making stuff up. It is, I believe in entrepreneurship and capitalism. I believe that for the young people in here, one of the things I would encourage you to do is always keep your eyes open to not just finding a job, but finding how you can create equity, how you can own something, how you can own a piece of the business. Always keep your mind on how do I get to own, because you can't just work for a salary for your whole life and not take risk. I mean, I know there's people who do that, but that can't be your goal going into it. You gotta take risk. You got to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to try something different. And you know, guess what? The system has to let you do it. I did it, you know, not that long ago. You know, I started my career sort of at the latter part of the Reagan years. It was my big hero. But it's a lot more difficult now. It's a lot more difficult now because we're taking a lot more money away from people in taxes. The permitting, there's permits here in South Carolina that take 9 months. 9 months to get a permit. What the heck are they doing for 9 months in these government offices? You know, and so it's a lot more difficult today than it was then, and it is our job to open that up. That's part of our movement, to open it up for entrepreneurship and capitalism. And last I'll say, which we're going to talk about a little bit, and then I'll stop talking, is get involved. Charlie talked about it. I was saying earlier when people were walking in, see a lot of gray hairs here. You know, I want to see more young people here. I want to see people who want to get involved. So I'm going to give you the great big secret in South Carolina that, you know, you've seen that before. I've said it at the last meeting in Lexington County, but a lot of people go in November and vote, right? You all like to vote. It makes you feel patriotic. You get a little sticker you can put on your little thing. It says, I voted. I have news for you. In South Carolina, you just wasted your time because the election is over with the primaries. 90% of what happens in the state happens in the primary. You want some primary statistics? Out of 5.5 million people in the state, an average of, not even average, it tends to be a range of 360 to 380,000 people vote in a primary. Those 360 to 380,000 people determine the outcome of how the state is ruled. You know, I was talking to I don't know where she is, I don't see her, the lady from Saluda County, who was talking about getting Oh, there you are. Oh, she's in trouble. Talking about getting people, better patriots, if you will, in office. And I said, you know what? How? You got 360 to 380,000 people determining the outcome. And you know who these people are? These people are usually the elites, the people with the money, the people who benefit from the system, the people that the politicians go to and say, yeah, I know, whoever, Stern, Chiefs, Adams, all the usual crowd, give me some money and let me win this election, and everything's good. And then they walk in after the election and say, hey, how about leasing this building from me? And they say, leasing? We don't need to lease a building. We have enough building. But you should lease the building. Okay, I'll lease the building. Because guess what? You don't lease the building, you don't get money next time. Sorry. So these are the people that are driving the elections. You all are the normal, whatever it is, whatever the math is, remaining 4.8 million people are sitting at home, letting this happen, and then they're going to be governed by the people who just got in there. So if there's one message to you, it is please get to the primary. That's how you get involved. I like to put it a different way. I just say a primary, when you go and vote in a primary, you're a point of light. You just lit up the state just a little bit, right? Took a little bit of darkness away. And if you take these two that never voted in a primary, right? You lit lights for them, right? And you made it brighter. And you lit 2 new lights and your light became brighter.
I love primaries.
He loves primaries. See? So I want to make sure that, especially the young people here, if you've turned 18, go vote June the 9th. Okay? That's where the decision is being made. So let's see. Let's unpack this a little bit. So where does South Carolina stand with this overall overview I gave you? Money and power has slowly but steadily shifted from the citizen to the government. Politicians will never tell you that. Money and power has shifted. And you say, how is that? Tell me about power. How is power shifted? Anyone want to take a shot at that? How is power shifted? Does anyone know?
Regulate the branches of government.
The what?
The branches of government.
The branches of government. Say, what do you mean by that?
Judicial is too powerful.
Judicial is too powerful.
USA.
Okay. What do you have to say?
In general, every time we vote for a new program, a new policy, a new agency, every time we vote to give more responsibility for our lives to our government, we decrease our own autonomy in our lives.
Wow, that was long-winded. Is that how y'all talk in Saluda County?
Absolutely.
Yeah? Okay. So I'm going to simplify this for you. We have only one branch of government. Benjamin.
There's a lot of ways power shifted. It can be like we have court decisions. The one that I think is most relevant right now is enforcement mechanisms. If there's a rule that exists on the books, but there's no enforcement for violating that rule, then the power is shifted, even though the legal structure hasn't. And that's a pretty consistent way that power is centralized.
So I'm going to give you an easier way to think of this. There is only one branch of government. This is what the first revolution was all about. In that case, the branch of government was King George III. In our case, the branch of government is the legislature. The legislature controls the judiciary. We're one of only 2 states in the nation. One of only 2 states in the nation where all the judges in the state, from Supreme Court on down, are appointed by a committee called the JMSC that is 100% loyal legislator control. They made some fake reorganization last year, but the bottom line is that the entire JMSC has lawyers, loyal legislators, in other words, the legislative branch, sits on the JMSC and picks the judges, and then they go and practice in front of the judges they pick. Almost to the point now that if you're a loyal legislator, you are paid a premium. Because when my friend here hires a loyal legislator, the loyal legislator tells him, yeah, you're in good hands because I appointed the judge. Okay? So there goes the separation of one of the branches, right? What about the other branch, the executive branch? Well, let's talk about the executive branch. Anyone familiar? We should ask Squeaky Ford back there with his phone texting away something. We should ask him if he's familiar with Article 4 of the South Carolina Constitution. Are you?
Yes.
So I'll speak for him because I don't want to ask him the question. Then he says, really not. I just said that. You know. So Article 4 of the South Carolina Constitution says, the governor is the supreme executive authority in the state. Supreme executive authority in the state. I only have 3 words. Act like it. For crying out loud. You know, we have an executive branch that is non-existent. The executive branch is controlled by a bunch of commissions and boards that have nothing to do with the governor. And so now you got the legislature controlling the executive branch. Perfect example, I'll give you a small example of what I mean so you understand. South Carolina DOT, much loved, the bottom 5 in the nation in roads. So, you know how the South Carolina DOT is controlled? It's supposed to be controlled by the executive branch. No. 8-member commission. 7 of them appointed by the legislature. The 8th member appointed by the 7 members. Okay? And you wonder why the roads are bad. And you wonder where your governor is. So we have one branch. Instead of calling it King George III, we call it the legislative branch. So what happens when you have one branch of government? Government becomes all powerful, the citizen is weakened. So, the second issue is, let's talk about money. I was telling someone before the meeting. I love the politicians, I love all these people. I just heard someone talk about, was it you, Greg, talk about they're going to cut the income tax. How the hell are we going to do that? You can't cut the income tax. It's a bunch of hogwash. It's 40% of the general fund budget comes out of the income tax. You cut the income tax, you bankrupt the state. So the only way to cut the income tax is to cut the spending. So I'm going to give you some data on spending. The best governor in the state, in the nation, Ron DeSantis, by far, the #1 governor in the nation. He spends $2,000 per person per year less than South Carolina does. So I don't know how many people are in this room. So let's say there's 75 people. He spends $150,000 less on this room per year than we do. I said, that sounds like a lot. So I said, let's combine a couple of states. So we looked at Texas, Tennessee, Florida combined. Well, not much better. $1,800 less per person per year than we spend in this state, right? So, anyone want to do the math? Do you have any math graduates here? You know, $2,000 per person per year, 5.5 million people. My calculator says that's 11 billion with a B. Where the heck is it going? That's what I want to know. we're the highest income tax red state in the nation, not in the Southeast. A lot of people say, oh, Southeast, it's Southeast, yeah, Florida's zero, so yeah, we're bigger than zero. No, we're the highest income tax red state in the nation. We've got property taxes coming out the kazoo. Yeah, I think soon they're gonna have a property tax on you. If you move, the tax it. If it's a car, it's taxed. If it's a boat, it's taxed. If it's a house, it's taxed. If it's something else, it's taxed, right? And guess where all that money is going, by the way? I also heard there's property tax cuts in the state house. I'll tell you about that little shenanigans in a second.
Schools.
Beautiful. Two-thirds of property tax goes to local school districts. 1/3 of property tax goes to local municipalities, cities, parks and rec. 0 goes to the state. Okay? So these municipalities, these school districts are just as out of control. Just if you want to know, the administrative costs in the local school district is 58% greater than Florida. 20, 25 years, who cares, right? Whatever. Some point in the past, we had 1/3 the number of administrators as teachers. Now we have more administrators than teachers. So, out of control. So what do? They say, we're going to cut your property tax. If you're 65, are you 65? You're going to cut your property tax. Then anyway, because I like you.
Not long.
Okay, you gave me some money, I'm going to cut your property tax. So we're going to do all these property tax cuts. Guess what they do? Guess what a property tax cut is? They have to take it away from the local school district or the parks and recs or the local things. So what do? They go to the local school district and say, we're going to cut the property tax. The school district says, no, you're not. How am I going to pay my administrator $175,000? They say, oh, don't worry about that. We're going to give it to you from the state general fund. So they take it out of one pocket, put it into another pocket, and say, we have a social media moment for you. Let's have fun. We cut the tax. It's a hoax. The only true tax cut happens when we take the money out of government and give it back to the citizen. It doesn't happen when we take it out of one pocket of government, put it into another pocket of government, and then say, oh, that actually was a tax cut here, but don't worry, it's coming out of that other pocket. So this is all stuff you'll need to be involved. The people in the back, all the young kids, y'all need to understand this stuff. When you get politicians coming in here giving you a bunch of BS, you need to be able to ask them the question. When they say, I'm going to cut the tax, say, hey, what % of your tax goes to your general fund? Huh? What? I don't know. I'm going to cut the property tax. Really? How is that? It comes out of the local school districts and local municipalities. How are you going to do that? Well, we're going to take it out of the pocket and give it to you.
Change the Constitution.
He's got a simple solution. But let me tell you, his solution is also rigged. I'll tell you why it's rigged. To change the Constitution, you need both houses, 2/3 of both houses to agree to put it on the ballot so you can vote on it. So you, the citizen, can say, I want to change the Constitution. They'll say, 2/3 of both houses have to vote to agree to allow you to change the Constitution.
No, a referendum.
You can't put anything on a referendum, nothing. You cannot change the Constitution. The people cannot change the Constitution unless both houses have a 2/3 vote to put it on the ballot.
Constitutional convention.
You can keep going down the path, it's the same thing, right? So I'm telling you, this is how it works. So, sales tax. We got pretty nice sales tax. Does anyone know how many exemptions we have in this sales tax?
Over 100.
Beautiful. You're following Doge SC. Congratulations. I love it. You must be one of our 27,000 Facebook followers because we put it out there. We have 110 exemptions. So if Delta Airlines has an aircraft over here, wherever, in Aiken or wherever, and they decide they need to change the engine, they replace the engine, the labor to change that engine is sales tax exempt for Delta. They don't pay sales tax on it. So what do they do with that? They're still spending the money, right? So they've got these incredible expenditures. What do? They tax you somewhere else and put it from one pocket to the next. So bad economic deals is another way your money is going. Horrible. These people don't know how to make deals. I used to be on the other side of the table when I was running businesses. The last business I owned, we had operations in all 50 states. And so I had to negotiate with various states, various entities, and the first thing I'd ask, I usually stayed out of it until I have to, and the first thing I ask is, are we dealing with smart people? And they'll say, yes. I'll go get prepared. Because you better be prepared dealing with smart people. These people are not smart. They really are not. You can go here not being prepared. The Scout Motor deal, $1.3 billion of incentives. You know the next incentive? The first thing you should have asked the guy is, what other places are you looking at? What are they offering you? The next best incentive was Mississippi at $150 million. What is wrong with us?
Agreed.
Crony capitalism.
Crony capitalism, they don't understand. They never made a deal in their life. So but when they sit across it, oh, wait, the guy's like 1.3 billion. You know what these politicians are thinking? How is this going to look on social media if I could go out there and announce that I got 1,100 jobs? It's going to look good. Okay, did you say 1.3 billion? Done. Then they go and announce 1,000 jobs or something like that. And then guess what? Do they ever go back and check if those jobs are created? No, sir. No. So here, this is the issue we have. So what are we going to do about it? We have to restore the separation of powers. Our judicial reform bill does that. It takes all the lawyered legislatures off the JMSC. It says no more, not even the next of kin. That's the first thing that we have to do. The second thing is we got to get an executive who acts like an executive. He needs to be able to sustain a veto. The governor has line item veto. He just can't sustain it. He says, I veto. They say, I override. Okay, done. So the veto is no good. You got to learn how to sustain a veto, which means you got to be in the districts of all these congressmen. The third thing is there needs to be a constitutional commission as part of the governor's office. If the legislature puts forward a bill, the constitutional commission says, is this constitutional? No. Throw it back. I'm not going to implement it. Sorry, not going to happen. We have so many stupid laws. We have 84,000 regulations on the books. On a per capita basis, it's 1.8 times the number of regulations that California has. So someone asked someone, I remember Nancy Mace, someone said, oh, bring that surfer dude, Gavin Newsom, in for a debate. We'll take him down. He'll take you down because you got a lot worse policies, frankly, than California has in some instances. We're creating a portal. I heard Greg or someone talk about letting people know. By the way, you guys be excited about this. We actually launched it this week with our volunteers. We're creating a portal. What this portal does, for all of you that are interested in this thing, we will load a bill on there. Let's say the judicial reform bill. You get on the portal, you register, it asks you, say, hey, you only do this once when you register. It says, can you upload a memo or anything you've written in the last, 3 or 4 months? And it learns how you write. If you don't have anything to upload, it just says, write a paragraph about yourself. It learns how you write. And then you got a bill in there and it says, I want a letter going to the legislature that says, I support this bill. It'll read the bill, it'll draft the letter for you. It has AI built into it that drafts the letter for you in your writing style. You can edit that letter. You can look at that letter and say, no, I didn't want to say that, I want to edit it. You can edit that letter, and when you edit that letter, it remembers the edits you make and learns your writing style some more. So it's continually learning your writing style. It takes 20 seconds to generate the letter. You then send the letter, hit the button, it's pre-programmed based on your zip code to go to your legislator who represents you in that zip code. You don't need to look them up or anything like that. If you want to add more people, you can. It's going to have the capacity in the spring of generating 5,000 to 10,000 letters an hour. So, we're just going to go through the network, say, send a letter to the legislator. Boom, you hit the button. These legislators are going to get covered up with letters, and it's going to show up in your writing style from your email. So it's not going to be a generic email. So these people are going to say, what is going on here? Like what? And then you say, well, this guy didn't listen to me. He's a jerk. He's still got that bill sitting on his desk. You can put that on a PDF and mail it. The postman will show up with 10,000 letters the next day and dump it on his desk. This is power back to the people. So this portal, we're going to turn it loose here. We're starting this week.
What's it called?
I have no idea. Don't ask me questions like that. Who asked me that question? I don't know. Do we know what it's called? Does it have a name? Well, why don't we call it the West Portal? Something like that. No, we don't have a name, but it's a portal. And then we have to reduce, by the way, what else do we need to do on separation of powers, like we talked about? We have to reduce our spending by $1,500 per person per year. How are we going to do that? These agencies need to be consolidated. I have a guy from Citadel and another lady working on it. We think we can get 103 agencies down to 35. There's 19 public safety agencies. 19. Yet, there is no one in the cabinet of the governor that's responsible for public safety. So they all point fingers at each other. The AG says, oh, that's not my fault. SLED says, well, that's his fault. And the governor says, well, I'm on vacation, don't call me. And so 30,000 jobs are going to have to be taken off the public payroll and repurposed to the private sector. We cannot afford to keep this many people on the public payroll. There's no other way. There's no easy way here. There's no, let's go cut taxes. It's not going to work. Our regulations, we have an AI program now that compares the law to the regulations that go with the law. So for those of you who don't know how it works, the legislator writes a law, and then they hand it off to the agency and say, hey, the people are too stupid to understand the law, so come up with a bunch of regulations that explain the law. So these guys come up with a whole bunch of crap, with regulations. This is how we end up with all the regulations we have. So we have an AI that compares the law to the regulation. And it simply says, which of it is consistent with the law, which is optional, not particularly consistent, and which is wrong, inconsistent. The first agency we did, SCDOT, our favorite, 37.1% unlawful. So these regulations have to be slashed. The permitting times have to come down, like Virginia did, using a permitting system to 30 days or less. No more 9 months deal. 9 months, your agency is gone. And then we have to privatize several industries. Ports, we don't belong in it. MUSC, we can keep research part of it. We can keep the teaching part of it. Hospitals and clinics need to be spun off. Scanner, we don't belong in it. Roads, we should be building toll roads, not the state. We should be giving the rights to build toll roads to the private sector and collecting the cash up front and collecting a percent of the toll. They take care of the road, they maintain the road like Florida has done, and the state can generate cash. Just these privatization efforts, I'm a private equity guy, so I do know what I'm talking about. We can generate $30 billion in cash, plus the savings we come up with from these agencies. We're going to propose a citizen trust fund. We're going to put all these monies into the fund, And on Jesus' birthday, December 25th, and Independence Day, July the 4th, twice a year, we're going to rebate this money to the taxpayers. And when there's enough of a flow of this money, we just cut the taxes. We first need to make sure the cash is there before we cut taxes. This is stupidity and lack of understanding. All these people who talk about taxes and all that, they've never run anything in their lives. And so it just sounds good, and they want to do it the easy way. So only then, I think, if you guys get involved in the primaries and elect the right people, like Greg over there, then we'll have a chance to fix roads and education, which to me are the two biggest things in this state. The roads are a disaster, our kids' education, we're 42 out of 50 in K to 12. And we spend $18,000 per child per year. So with that, I'll stop. I think I've taken up too much time, so let's take questions.
Would you be interested in trying to privatize schools as far as we're here?
No. I think the Constitution requires us to have a public school system. Private schools, we have private schools. I think extension of what you're saying is, do we believe in choice? Where, you can go to a school of your choice. I don't have a problem with choice, I don't know about self-governance, but I don't like the choice that we have in the state. We spent 2.5 years talking about choice as some type of ideological nonsense. And essentially, what we came up with is a choice that helps 10,000 kids out of 800,000 in the school system. So, there's I call this the inverted alphabet approach, which is S comes before T. So I always say strategy first, tactics next. Strategy first, tactics next. We don't have a strategy. That's why we're stuck in the tactics. We say, oh, what should the strategy be in education? Get the heck out of 42 out of 50. We need to be in the top 20 in 4 years. That's the strategy. So whatever it is we do in education, is it going to move the needle to get us into the top 20 in 4 years? If not, we're not going to do it.
But is that what we want, though?
Pardon me?
Education is not just public.
Education is not public. We have public schools, we have private schools. That's not the question. The private schools, my child, unfortunately, I had to switch her out after elementary, and she does go to a private school. But the question is, who funds these schools? That's the question of choice.
You ever read Milton Friedman?
Of course.
What did he say about public education?
Well, it doesn't matter what Milton Friedman says, it matters what our Constitution says.
Well, then
right?
why change it?
Well, you keep saying change the Constitution. I keep telling you, to change the Constitution, it needs leadership. Who's the leader in this state? Do we have a leader? Does anyone know who's the leader?
Nancy Mace.
Nancy Mace. Yeah, she's sorry.
She's in Congress.
She's not a leader.
The ability for our legislator to appoint the judges, is that in the Constitution, that they can do that?
No. So what is in the Constitution is having a JMSC that picks the judges in the state. That's what the Constitution says. Then the legislatures decided that, like everything else, like the commissions and boards, that they would pick the members of the JMSC. Then they decided, well, these members of the JMSC we're picking are a bunch of morons, so we're going to put ourselves in the JMSC. So that there was a progression of events there. The Constitution itself does not require legislators to be part of JMSC, it just requires us to have a JMSC.
So to change that, does that require a supermajority?
No. And all it requires right now is the judicial reform bill that we have. It's S696, I think, in the Senate, and I don't know what the heck it is in the House. It's some number. But essentially, that bill already has a substantial amount of support in the House. It's going to pass the House. They told me it's impossible to do, but somehow we got the Freedom Caucus to support it, Maura Smith to support it. I even got Jermaine Johnson, a Democrat, to support it. I just said, tell me what's wrong with it. And he couldn't. So I said, good point, I'll support it. I said, awesome. So, you know, so all it takes is a simple majority. It just needs to pass the Senate and the House.
Second question. How many senators, do you know how many senators and delegates we have in the state about?
I think the total number of senators, 45, is it? 46, something like that.
How many delegates?
Delegates, you mean?
Representatives, sorry.
Representatives, she said 124.
Okay. Of both those groups, do you know how many of them are actively supporting Doge?
No.
I can speak to that. I can tell you that people are scared of you.
It shouldn't be. They should be
Because-
scared of the people.
No, let me just tell you the truth. People are scared of hearing the truth. It threatens their position and their power. Some people come to this job, I look at it, I want to be in for a little while, I believe in term limits, you come in, make changes, if I'm not effective enough, I get out. There are lifers in there. There are ones that this is their job. We make literally $10,400 a year. I don't know what you're in there forever for, but I can promise you I got better things to do. But no, they're threatened. There's a reason a ton of legislators didn't come with me today. They are threatened by you. And I don't think it's because he's exposing it. He's exposing voting records. He's exposing where the waste is going. And it's hard. You've got a good team. I always say I'm part Freedom Caucus, I'm part this. It doesn't behoove me either way. I'm going to vote the way I vote. I don't need somebody to do it. And the same thing I've told Greg as a newbie, vote how you're going to vote, but don't let somebody influence you. And let me throw this in there real quick and I'll get the mic back. But going back to the Scout deal, do you know how we all agreed on the Scout deal for the ones who did? We were all put in a room and we were told we do not want to not give these jobs to the South Carolinians. You will look terrible for not giving jobs to the people. You're bringing industry, you're bringing infrastructure, you're bringing all this. We have to do this deal. And it's almost like if you don't do it, there's going to be consequences. And that's where we are. It's scare tactics. And it's scared to change the power. And when you talk about them not being that smart, they're making deals based off emotion, based off those posts, based off who's going to like them. Look what they've done. It's not coming because you told us what to do. That's why we're telling you to get involved. That's why we're saying sign up for these portals and be a part of it. Send us those letters because your voices, us, and I'm one of you because I feel the exact same way, that's important. So there's your answer.
Thank you. I've been, president, CEO for, maybe 15, 20 companies in my life. I don't even remember. But the one I'm proudest of is I am the president, CEO, and founding member of the I Do Not Care Club. Okay.
Yes, sir. Back to the topic of education. You mentioned that along with roads as the primary, I guess I would call them the purge, right, of all this excess waste. What can we do with regard to these absurd salaries that our school administrators are given? I have addressed with the Aiken County School Board in particular, and also at the State House. And you'll find that Representative Rivas can remember we talked at length about DEI programs, CRT, and how we were trying to get that out. It seems that those salaries go hand in hand with these idealistic programs that are created to enhance the educational experience, but it doesn't give us any leverage and any traction going from 42 to 32 to 22 where we belong and where we could be. So my question to you is, how do we reduce this absurd waste of our money that we can then give back to the people that are trying to make up that 1,800 deficit and improve our educational nuts and bolts at the same time?
Do you want the short answer or the long answer?
I want the short one.
The short answer is the short answer is you cannot under the existing system. The long answer is something called, I don't know what they call it, Title 57 or Item 57 or Rule 57 or some bloody 57. And essentially what it is it's called preemption. What South Carolina allows is local school districts, 81 of them, I think, even though we only have 40-some counties, 81 school districts can preempt state policy, which means that you can come up with something, you can go to them, and you can say, hey, I'd like you to do this, and they can say, thank you, go screw yourself. I'm not gonna do it. And so, preemption has to be reversed. This is, we're not gonna touch education this session because it takes a lot of work. We will have an education bill next session. It's going to be called Through the Eyes of a Child. Through the eyes of a child, meaning making educational reform that a child looks at and says, this benefits me, not some ideological nonsense that you keep talking about. And so along those lines, we're going to address something called governance, how this thing is managed overall. Within that, preemption has to be changed. I've already talked to the Speaker of the House. I said preemption gets in the way of ever getting out of the dungeon. You cannot get out of the dungeon with preemption. You cannot have 81 independent districts having the ability to make decisions. And the decisions they make are mostly bad ones, because like you said, the administrative salaries and things out of control. I mean, some of them make $175,000. It's just nuts. The teachers now want to become administrators because they just nothing to do and a lot of money. So I think preemption has to be changed. It will be changed. It's going to need the courage to be changed. And I think part of our challenge here is to vote people into office who have courage. If there's one thing you want to do is look for courage. Look for people who are prepared to make tough decisions and tell you the truth, like she said, the truth. I want some questions from the, Benjamin.
What's the question limit that the person can ask?
Go for it, let's see.
Okay. The first one was, what have you observed from federal Doge? What issues have you seen that you intend to learn from and not replicate in South Carolina?
Yeah, so we of course, we observed, we sort of started out, the federal Doge started out, but of course, we didn't have Donald Trump. And so we were working from the outside. I think that you need to have, Melissa brought it up earlier, right? You need to have a stick if you want Doge to work. Elon Musk didn't have a stick. Elon Musk had the right idea, but he's a private sector guy, and he knew how to get it done. But he didn't have a stick because when he started to run into a lot of the snakes started to rattle, and the whole Washington establishment started getting rattled, and I think the experts went to Trump and said, back down. It's not worth it. So I think we need to have a stick. Our stick is different. Our stick, because we don't have a Trump, we don't have anyone in the office. We have, I call him Hyden McMaster. No one knows where he is. He's in an undisclosed location. So our stick is, we're going to have a presence in the districts. We have a tremendous ground game. We have a presence in the upstate. We have a regional manager in the Midlands. We have regional managers in the Low Country. We have the 25,000 volunteers, somewhere in the 20,000 range of volunteers. We have county heads now in many of the major counties, and so we're going to expose these people. She talks about people being afraid. We don't want people to be afraid, but what we want people to do is we want the voters to not be fooled anymore. If you want to call that being afraid, well, you can call it whatever you want. But we want the voters not to be fooled anymore. So we have a very strong ground presence. So we're just going to put this out there. We're going to say, this is what needs to happen. This guy's against it. Please tell him what to do. And our portal is going to help that, of course. We can generate tremendous amount of pressure with the portal. In an ideal situation, once people like Greg get in, once people who I believe in the cause get in, we're going to have more and more influence to actually make change. But I'll tell you one thing I noticed, Benjamin. I noticed that I've talked to a lot of people. A lot of people here in this state, they want to do the right thing, I think. There's no leadership. They're afraid to take the steps and get canceled, whatever you call it. There is no leadership. No one can name for me a leader in this state. And when you have that, you have chaos. When when everyone's in charge, no one's in charge.
Okay, so some notable ones that I saw and was a little concerned with. I don't see a whole lot of intent to replicate my biggest concerns here. I like some of the stuff you mentioned, like expediting permits. I think our permit process is too long and annoying.
So what now? Say that again?
I like the expediting permits. There's a few of the options for cutting
yeah.
waste you presented I'm in favor of. But the inspector generals, that was a big thing we saw federally. The Trump administration, part of the Doge effort, got rid of a lot of the inspector generals, people that consistently found fraud and sent people to prison for fraud. They returned anywhere between 13 to lower 20s dollars for every dollar we spent on the program. I know South Carolina's inspector generals aren't quite as efficient. They're like a little over breaking even, but not much. But Doge hasn't arrested anybody for fraud. There's been no person that they've referred that later ended up being arrested. The inspector generals, that's not the case for. They've been more efficient at accomplishing that task.
Attorney General.
Do you intend to leave the inspector general's office in South Carolina how it is now, or do you plan?
That's really not. Remember, we're not in government. You know, unlike the other Doge, we're not in government. We're outside of government. I think we're going to support candidates who actually do some of the things you're talking about inside government. One of the people I like for is actually an ex-Democrat. They're going after him because the ex-Democrat is David Pascoe. You know, I like David Pascoe. I think he's a good guy. I don't draw the lines between Democrat, Republican, black, white, man, woman, all that. I honestly believe there's I go by a moral and spiritual code. I believe we're all children of God, and God wants us to find the common good. And God didn't say the common good is Democrat or Republican. God said, find the common good, right? We're all children of God, find the common good. And so I listen to anyone and everyone. I listened to David Pascoe. I examined his record. I saw what he did. I saw how he put people away, and I like him. And he, like I said, he was a Democrat. And I think someone like that getting in is going to be the internal police that you're talking about. What we're doing is something different. I don't think Elon had the ability to do it. Within the next 3 months, we're going to have a forensics AI audit. And essentially what it's going to do is it'll go into an agency. For those of you who don't know what a forensics audit is versus a financial audit. Financial audit does more, you know, are you complying with GAAP, debit, credit, that kind of thing. Forensics audit doesn't care about all that. It says, where's the money coming from and where is it going to? So we're going to be able to go into these agencies and in a matter of a day or two, be able to track down where is the money coming from and where is it going to. But then it's not just agencies. We want to go into local districts, local municipalities, local school districts, and honestly, here is where having some kahunas comes in. If the local districts and the local municipalities say, home rule, you can't do that, we're independent. This is again, inverted sovereignty. States are sovereign, right? The only rights the federal government has are those that are specifically defined in the Constitution. Other than that, federal government doesn't have any rights with the states. The way they get some additional rights is because they give you money and then put conditions on it. But other than that, they don't have any rights. So what people do is they extrapolate that and they think municipalities and cities and all that are also sovereign. They're not. They are a creator of the state. And so my simple thing is, if you say home rule, great, have your home rule, I'll be cutting off state funds tomorrow morning. Otherwise, you're going to have a forensics audit. We need to know where all this money is going, no matter where it is. Local, state, Democrat, Republican, I don't really care. It is the taxpayer money. I look at taxpayer money very simplistically. I look at it just like I look at the private sector. You look at discretionary and non-discretionary. There are certain non-discretionary things. Okay, you have to have jails, you have to have some roads, so on and so forth. A lot of it is discretionary. If it's discretionary, you have a fiduciary duty to give the taxpayer a return on their money, otherwise give it back to them. And so, our forensics audit is going to turn things upside down. I think it's already in the making, so it's going to be a thing, it's going to encounter a lot of resistance because you have no idea what's going on with states and local. It's terrible. It's worse than, it may be worse than the state level. Back there? Yeah. You are going to need the mic here. You're so soft-spoken that you're not like me. I don't need this, but.
If you're using AI for the forensic audit and saying, like, there's a mistake somewhere down the road, sometimes it just happens. If you're using AI, who's going to be responsible for that mistake?
You know, this is a really good question too, because we got to be careful with AI. You know, there's several elements of AI. One is the knowledge portion of AI. One is the transaction portion of AI. I'm opposed to the knowledge portion of AI. I don't like using the knowledge portion of AI. I'm talking about the transaction portion of AI. So in answer to your question, this is what we're doing with regulation. You remember the regulation thing we talked about, where it's looking at the laws and then looking at the regulations, comparing the two and say, this makes no sense. Our plan is then to take that output, which you can print out actually, or you can look it on the computer if you prefer doing that. And we're going to have a group of about 5 experts actually look at the output from AI and say, is that true? Why is it saying that that regulation has no connection to the law? And if they don't understand why it's saying that, they can actually ask the AI, why are you saying that? And it'll tell them. And if they don't agree with it, the human being will have the ultimate say. So we'll have a human eyes on the output. We're not just going to take an AI and kick it out there and trust it 100%. We'll have a human eye looking at it and say, is it valid? And you can ask the AI questions you want in these programs we have. It'll tell you why it came to the conclusion it did. If you disagree with it, cut it out. But most of the time, when we have the humans look at it, we find 1 or 2 things that are not correct because the law, the regulation is not written properly, not written, you know, where it can be interpreted more than one way. But I'd say 95% of the time it's accurate.
I am very interested in the use of AI, and I'm like you. There are things to fear, but I think it has great potential for good. I heard early on, because I've followed Doge for a long time, Doge, South Carolina, that there was some thought of using it in school districts to individually assess students and come up with individualized curriculum for them. I was very interested in that. I think there's big potential for that. The other thing is, would there also be a potential for taking the issues that South Carolinians care about, the issues that our politicians talk about all the time and espouse when they're running because they want our support? Is there a way to use AI to assess how our representatives are actually voting on the core issues?
Well, let me answer the first question. When you talk about the education piece, I don't know what you're referring to. The Doge education piece has nothing to do with what you're talking about, curriculum and all that. I'm just opposed to all that. I think AI that we use in education is purely transactional. We're doing a trial, Doge is doing a trial right now in Edgefield County, here actually, with I think it's 1,700 kids in middle school and high school, where all we do with AI is use it transactionally. So you might not know this, but you learn differently than she does. You learn how to add differently than how she learns how to add. If I'm your teacher, I'm only teaching you one way. And that might resonate with you. You might say, I'm not getting it, I don't understand it. So you have half the class that's usually confused, half the class that it's like, oh, I got it. What AI does, the way we're using it, the software figures out how you learn. And then it shows you how to add the way that works best for you. And that's what we're doing. And same thing with reading. Some people have trouble with spelling. Some people have trouble with just putting words together and pronouncing them. And it figures out where your problem is with reading, spelling, or pronouncing words. And then it teaches you the way you like to learn, the way your mind works. And we find dramatic results with that. But remember, it's a tool. So I draw the line on AI between tool and knowledge. If you're talking about AI knowledge in terms of curriculum, in terms of teaching history and all that, I'm opposed to all that. We're too early in the stage to use it all. It's dangerous, and I'm such a big child protecting person that I don't want to subject our kids to that. It would be experimenting with our kids, which I'm opposed to. But using it as a transaction, I think it's great. And the same thing, by the way, with AI. I'm opposed to where you call American Express and you deal with some AI type person walking you through it, and you don't know if it's a person or an AI. I feel like they should disclose that. It's okay. It's okay if it's an AI, but they should disclose it. They should say, you are dealing with an AI-enhanced chatbot, whatever it is, and so you know. And then you can say, or press 0 if you want to talk to a person. This thing of, it's a dangerous road we're going down if we don't make the separation between knowledge and transaction. Is it great for putting together medical records and accumulating medical records, putting all your medical records on a disk so you can take it from doctor to doctor and not have to print out 500 copies each time your doctor asks for a medical record? Yes. Is it good for the AI to make a medical decision for you? I'm not ready for that. Some people are. I think it's wrong. So I just don't like it. I think it's a dangerous technology if you don't understand it. And so right now, I prefer using it transactionally. So we're always very careful to make the distinction between transaction and knowledge. As to the other question you asked, the answer to that question is, I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I don't know.
So we're talking about money, and what you're talking about takes money. So who's funding your group?
Great question. People always ask that, who's funding my group? Well, I'll tell you, from the time we started to now, we've spent $1.2 million, which we'll put on the website. Soon we're going to put we got $11,000 in contributions from people donating $25 here and $50 there. I didn't even want to take that, but then there are some people who called and said, we can't go to your meetings, we're too old, we can't knock on doors, we don't have the time, I've got 3 kids at home, I can't get involved, but I truly believe in what you're doing and I'd like to help in some way. And so we put a limit on it. We put a $900 limit, no corporations, no PACs, and I tell people up front, you get no privileges for donating 50, 100, 200 than the person who donates 0. I think money is the root of all evil. I think it's a bad precedent we're setting here, and I decided up front that if I really truly believed in what I did, I've been very lucky to live the American dream. I started out with nothing, student loans, and got to where and I said, I need to put my money where my mouth is. So we're 90, actually, I might get the math wrong here. I think it's 99.9% self-funded.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yes, Kendall, you want me to shut up? Is that it?
I don't want you to, but we gotta wrap it up.
Okay, we gotta wrap it up. So, any other questions? Okay, we got one in the back.
When you said AI forensic audit, my ears just perked up like a deer in the woods, here in Branchburg. I would love to see an AI forensic audit on this. So, and I know I'm not the only victim, but I want to know where the money went. So I'm one of the victims of the worst man-made government infrastructure disaster in all of South Carolina history, with the exception of the Civil War. We know that was terrible, right? But this is a modern day event. The government called it the 1,000-year flood. There are 7 guilty parties that were involved. SC&G, Lexington County, Stormwater Management, City of Columbia, Sewer Water Management, retention pond incorrection, a huge retention pond that's bigger than a Nimitz or Ford class aircraft carrier that retains no water. I know who all the guilty parties are. They called it the 1,000-year flood. That's a cover-up story, okay? There's tons of victims who have not been compensated. I lost millions of dollars, 4 properties and another beautiful piece of property, all on this creek called Kinley Creek. The negligence, which is malfeasance, government, which is a crime. Malfeasance is criminal negligence because you knew you needed to do all this stuff for 30, 40 years. Instead, the money's going over here and over there, and it's not taking care of we the people. That's when you find out they got a different agenda. I even went so far as to look up what Joaquin means, because that's a very unusual name for a hurricane, which made landfall in Bermuda, 841 miles due east of South Carolina, Charleston to be exact. Never even made landfall in South Carolina, but the right hook, because you know all hurricanes above the equator turn counterclockwise. So that we got hit with the right hook, 28 inches of rain in 3 days, which was a whistleblower event from above, right? Joaquin in Spanish means God will judge. I went further back. What does it mean in Hebrew? Yahweh. Some people call him Yahweh, but it's actually Yahweh. YHWH, Yahweh, the breath of life. It said, Yahweh will judge. You put that together. No, not Yahweh will judge. Yahweh will lift thee. So the first part in Spanish of Joaquin is God will judge, and the second part from Hebrew, which goes further back to Spanish, is Yahweh will lift thee. So you see what's happening here? So they had an organization called South Carolina Hearts and Hands Disaster Relief that got fired for losing everybody's paperwork. And Uncle Sam bailed out the counties that were involved. But there's a lot of people who never
So,
got
in the interest of time, I can see them making hand signals in the back.
Yeah,
But
that needs to be
talking about,
that needs to be forensically audited, yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that has to happen. I get it, but when you actually see what's going on, you will be shocked, I think. Was there a question in front of you somewhere? I saw someone, I'll take a last question from anyone back there? Yeah, Benjamin?
I've tried to keep my complicated ones for afterwards. Sorry, I'm asking so many. I heard Mr. Ford earlier mention moving away from property taxes. How do you intend to still fund schools with this? And do you want to, how do you feel about a land value tax model for commercial land, but a regular property tax model for residential land?
I have no idea. I really don't. I haven't really looked into the details of property tax. All I know on property tax is if you're going to make a property tax cut, you got to cut the cost locally. Local school districts, local counties, local cities. So when you're talking about property tax to people who know more about property tax than I do, remember I tend to talk at an executive level, maybe a CEO level. And so the first question I would say is, where are you getting the money from? You're getting it from the general fund, so that's just taking one part, putting it in another. If you really want to cut tax, cut the cost. There's no other way to do it. Businesses don't do it any other way. I don't say I'm going to give you a dividend if you give me more money. It's stupid. But the property tax issue, by and large, including the homestead exemption, including the 4% versus 6% residence use, for your home, all of those were not real cuts. They were funded from other taxes. So they took tax from here, put it over there. He's saying we got to get out. Sorry, I always get long-winded. Hope you guys enjoyed it though.
Very much.
I'm going to make this so brief because we don't have a lot of time left. First of all, Turning Point at USC Aiken has to disclose at the end of this event that we do not endorse any politicians or policies that were spoke about today, but we are very happy to have them here. And like I said at the beginning, this is about learning and accessing information that we might not otherwise have access to. So whether or not you walk out disagreeing or agreeing or taking bits and pieces of what Ram and the other speakers have said today, we're just happy that you came and happy that you gave them a chance to speak. So thank you so much for your questions, thank you for your time, and you guys have a blessed day.